Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farouk, and I'm here with my co host, Nick Sigelski. And today we have the one and only Garrett Palmer. He is a top account executive over at Pipedrive, doing over a 110% to quota average over the last 3 years, and he is their dedicated senior AE for their most strategic accounts. Nick, why should people listen?
So this was a really great episode around getting to the heart of why a customer even signed up for a trial or why they're even on the call with you, how you should structure those first meetings, how you should take what you learned in discovery and have it inform the ordering or the sequencing of what you show in your demo, and then how to use recommendations related to price different than presenting price. There's a difference between recommending and presenting that we get into in this episode. All right, Garrett, welcome to the show. We start every single episode with your top 3 actionable takeaways. So let's get your 3.
Number one, start with why they took the call. In high velocity sales, you've got a limited amount of time to get as much information as you possibly can. Use something like the SPICE model, figure out why they're actually looking at your product, what they want to use it for moving forward, and what it will take for them to get across the line.
Beautiful. What's number 2?
Number 2 is reveal the deal roadblocks up front. 3 questions I always ask. Number 1, what are your key requirements and non-negotiables? This will help you figure out if it's even worth a deal moving forward. If it's not going to close, you don't need to spend any more time on it. Number 2, what departments will be involved in that procurement process and what will they need to approve your product? We need to get everyone in from the very beginning, make sure this keeps moving along without any hiccups. Number 3, establish their timeline and make sure it's realistic given what they have. They might have an idea of what it's going to take, but you know how long this will realistically close and you can set those expectations accordingly.
Beautiful. Round us out, Garrett. What's number 3?
Number 3, set next steps on the spot. I can't tell you guys how many times I've been burned waiting to hear from someone after trying to set the follow-up, even 5 minutes after the meeting. If it is one of your priority customers, you need to figure out that calendar before that call is disconnected.
So, Garrett, you're in a high velocity sales motion. You've got 2, 3, maybe 4 calls to close. Let's walk through each of those calls and the structure of each of those calls. Call number 1, discovery call. How long is this first call? It literally sounds like a 15-minute pre-screen, why'd you take the call, very quick overview, set an actual call.
You almost want to plant the seed of the next step with them. The reason I'm calling today, saw you signed up for the trial, would love to get a little more information about why you're looking at Pipedrive so that we can set up a demo, make this as specific as possible for you. So even someone who doesn't have a CRM, we still want to understand why they're ultimately looking to get off of. And from there, we want to get them set up on a demo, but we also want to give them, prior to that demo, a little bit of insight into Pipedrive so that when we get into that demo, we can really hit the ground running and I don't have to give them the initial, hey, this is what a deal's pipeline is for compared to your spreadsheet. They already have that basic knowledge going into the first demo.
I want to highlight that first question that you are asking when they pick up the phone and you talk to them, which is like, what prompted you to sign up in the first place? And that seems like a very basic or simple question, but it's actually, for me, when I'm on my discovery calls, that's the question that I start every first discovery meeting with, which is like, why'd you take the call? For inbound meetings where they've reached out to us, or in your case, where they've requested a demo, it's super straightforward. It's like, what prompted you to sign up, or what prompted you to fill out the demo request form, or why did you reach out to us? For outbound book meetings, I can't ask that question because I was the one that reached out to you. But I'll ask the question in a little bit different way. I'll say something like, Armand, I have to imagine you have a lot of people reaching out to you, wanting to get time on the calendar, and I hope you don't take meetings with every single one of them. I guess, what prompted you to take this meeting with me? And then I'll understand what about my message when I reached out to them actually resonated with them. And you get very quickly to their heart of their motivation for even being on that meeting in the first place. And that, in my opinion, is like the most efficient way to kick off a first interaction with a customer.
The other thing that will commonly happen here is people will give you wants, which is, oh, we want a more scalable process. We want to get off of spreadsheets and into a CRM. And a common mistake is people say, great, we have Pipedrive. But another tactic you can use here is after someone says, I want this, turn that want into a why. So I want to have a more scalable process. I want to get off spreadsheets. Oh, I'm curious. My guess is you didn't wake up yesterday and think, today is a good day to get off of spreadsheets. I'm curious, what prompted you wanting to switch? Or why'd you want to make the switch today? And that will almost always tell you intent. And intent usually tells you where the problem is coming from. So Garrett, you set up that next call. The first one that you were talking about is really like a qualification call.
Yep.
And then the second call, you're calling it a demo. It's really like a 30-minute discovery call where you're probably doing a little bit more detailed discovery, and then you're doing a demo there. So talk to me about how you run that call.
Yeah, so the second meeting is pretty often demo discovery. It's a little bit of both. You're still understanding what the customer is looking for, but you're now starting to leverage the actual product in that meeting. Regardless of however many demos you're doing, it should never just be a one-way conversation where I say, here's the product, here's everything that Pipedrive can do, and you don't give them a minute to talk. The demo should be used to supplement that continued discovery and subsequent pitch on that. You mentioned that you're having issues tracking all of your team's activities. How are you managing that in the spreadsheet right now? What does that next version look like in the CRM? Great. Here's how you can set up your pipelines to replicate what you're currently using, but manage it in a more effective way.
You're talking about a demo pattern that's one of my favorites, which is, how do you do this? They tell you how you do this. You show them how they can do it instead, and then you ask, how does this compare? And if you're doing early demo, when I was at Carta, we were selling 4K deals sometimes. You do discovery and demo in the same call. You can't do 30 minutes of discovery and fit a demo into that call. So you show something, you ask a question, you show them what it looks like instead, and then you just ask them, how does this compare to what you did before? And if you do that 3 or 4 times, you're able to get all the information you need about their sales process, but then show as you go. And oftentimes there will be more questions that come from them, and the demo can be used to spark even more discovery throughout the rest of the call.
Well, I think the other thing when you do that, Garrett, when you say, hey, you said this, I'm going to show you what that looks like in Pipedrive, is you show the customer, when you give me information, it's not just going in one ear and out the other, like I'm actually listening to you, and it's going to make for a better demo, which incentivizes them to share more and more. And it's a far more engaged back and forth. Question for you, because there's like 800 different things you could show in Pipedrive. How do you decide what features, what functionality you're going to show any given customer? Because my guess is it's different for customer A versus customer Z.
It absolutely is. Structure the demo in the order of pain points that they gave to you. 90% of the times when you ask what's wrong with someone's current system, the first pain point they bring up is the most important. The second pain point is the second largest, and so on. And so you can kind of structure it around that of, here's your biggest challenge. Your sales team is all over the place. You have no idea what they're doing on a day-to-day. Here is the overall interface of Pipedrive. Look how easy it is to use and for you to go from one area to the next to get that better understanding. How does this resonate with you? They start to answer, they ask other questions. It keeps you kind of in the driver's seat of the conversation whilst making the customer still feel like they're kind of in control. They're getting everything that they want, when in reality, you're taking them to the exact endpoint of where you want, which is getting that buy-in of the product, because you've been able to answer many of their questions in a single meeting.
Yeah, when I think back to when I was demoing at Pave, Pave is a compensation solution that allows you to run compensation reviews out of spreadsheets and then communicate compensation and total rewards to your employees. And so we had 2 pretty simple products. It was a compensation planner, and then once you were done, it was total reward statements that you could send to your employees. And the problem is we'd have companies that would come to us with one of 2 problems. They'd either really be struggling with compensation reviews, or they would really be struggling with getting employees excited about their total rewards packages. And so the biggest mistake that I would be correcting with reps is you'd have someone screaming and kicking and wailing about their total reward statements, but because they were so used to doing the compensation planner demo before the total reward statement, they would lose the prospect's interest because they demoed the wrong thing first. And so you need to learn how to go chronologically in both directions on your demo. So if someone came in really hot on total rewards, we would say like, all right, here's the end product at the end of your compensation reviews. This is what a total reward statement looks like. We would do 2 or 3 minutes of demo there. And then we would say, but how does this thing actually even get created? Let's work our way backwards to the other part of the product that I need to sell you. Or if someone was really excited about the compensation planner, we would start there. And then we would cross-sell and we'd be like, but wait, how do you actually communicate total rewards to employees? Great, that kicks off the second side of the demo. But start with the parts that get them most excited and then cross-sell or move laterally to the other parts of the demo that you know are critical for the rest of the sale.
I can absolutely relate with that, Armin. I work with a lot of managers, execs, C-suites. Their focus from a higher level is the reporting. And that's all. That's what they care about is how am I forecasting? How am I tracking conversion? And we say, great, here's our reports. Here's a sample dashboard that you can create that shows you all of these metrics. But how do we actually get the data to feed into these to measure it? And that's where we go back into and we start looking at things from another perspective. Here's how your sales team will manage their day-to-day. These are the interactions that will ultimately populate the reports that you need from a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is they care about the reports, and so you earn the right to show what feeds into the reports by showing them the end states. Because I don't care about what's going to feed into a report if the report ultimately isn't going to show me what I want. And so you show them, hey, you're going to be able to see your forecast, or you're going to be able to see pipeline and time in different stages. Here's how it actually gets there. It reminds me of when I sold law firm ERP accounting software, and we would show the firm a dashboard of how they could look at the profitability of their different practice areas. And if I showed them the accounting exercise that had to go into actually building that dashboard, I would totally lose them. It was like a months-long process during implementation. But when you show the end state, it earns the right for them to want to see more.
Are there any times where you're like not sure if it's even worth setting a next step at all? And if so, what do you do?
Yeah, I've definitely been there, and it's okay to be in that position. It's actually better that you don't, because that means that if you're sacrificing time for what maybe is a smaller opportunity that may or may not convert or may churn pretty quickly, that's time that you're not spending on maybe a more valuable customer that has some deeper requirements on that. So if it's not worth setting up a meeting, make sure that they feel taken care of so that at the end of that call, providing them resources, use cases, comparison materials for competitors. What that does is when you wrap up that meeting and you send those follow-ups, it still shows that you took care and you listened to the customer in those initial meetings, and you're available if they need anything and they can reach out to questions. But it doesn't necessarily put the requirement of I need to block another 30 minutes on your calendar, and that will free you up for either a new prospect or, again, a larger fish that you've been going after.
One thing that's also really helpful for me is if you're first starting out demoing and setting next steps, in between your demo and your next steps, just pause and be like, look, we can go deeper than this. This was the high level overview. You mentioned you had these problems and this is how we would solve it. Before I even talk about what it would look like to go deeper here, what do you think? And you'd be surprised when you just ask the simple question, what do you think? You could be completely honest. Love it, hate it, curious what you thought. People will usually tell you where they stand, and they'll give you answers in one of 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is they're either going to say, this is amazing, and you want to understand what was amazing, and then set your next steps. Bucket number 2, this is crap. Great. Here's your recap, your 60-second demo video, whatever you need. Have a nice day. The third bucket is the most dangerous, where people will not say, this is amazing. People will not say, this is crap. They'll say, well, I'd love to see a longer demo. And that's where you have to dig in a little bit more. Interesting. Okay, well, great. That's awesome. Always happy to go deeper with you. I'm curious, based on what you know so far, both of us are going to have to invest a little bit more time together to get to know this thing. Knowing what you know so far, is this the type of thing that you think is worth exploring further? And if so, I'm curious, like, what caught your eye? And get them to add some color to why they want to take that next step before you just go on these demo trains with deals that are not actually going anywhere.
That's where those additional discovery questions really come into play, because those are diving even further into things that they might not have thought about. I don't need just reporting. on what has happened, I need to be able to forecast, or I need to set up custom reports. Those additional discovery questions take what might be a bottom tier plan customer and elevate them to what is ultimately your target, your middle range, one of those upper plan levels that includes features that they didn't think about, but they're now realizing through the demo, here's what I need to be as effective as possible and achieve maximum success with Pipedrive.
This was really important to us at Carta. And the reason for that is the difference between the lowest package and the medium package was a 20% contract size. And if you presented the wrong thing, or if you presented the cheap one and the one they needed, and they picked the cheap one, you would literally have to close one more deal for every 4 deals you closed, right? And so it was critical to only show them the package that they needed. And oftentimes that was the more expensive one based on how quickly the company was growing. I'm curious for you, Garrett, though, how do you present packaging?
Yeah, Armand, I will show them the entirety of the pricing page. It's something that we make readily available to customers on the website. Pipedrive may be the most transparent CRM when it comes to those costs. So it's something that's available to them. I won't try and hide those from them, but I will essentially eliminate in the beginning of that pricing overview. Here's what won't work for you. Here is basically what will keep you at your current level. Here is what will elevate your sales team and their ability to sell to customers. So I'll present it to them, but I will eliminate on both ends. I don't think the smallest is right for you. I don't think our top tier plan is the best for you. And you can joke about that as well with them. I'll do my best to keep you away from that level. What I think is something here in the middle, more happy medium. It's a great price point. It offers everything that you'll need, everything that you kind of really jumped at during the demo. I just think it'll be a nice blend of value. It's a little bit more expensive, but it'll make your team more effective and it'll just increase that ROI.
It reminds me, so we recently did a webinar with the author of The Jolt Effect, Matt Dixon. And one of the things that he talks about is one of the best ways to overcome customer indecision, where they literally get stuck in analysis paralysis, is eliminate options. One of the things that we think is like, the more the merrier, the more pricing options we present, the better chance there's going to be a great fit. And what Matt's research showed was that's actually wrong. When you take things off the table and say, I don't think you should go here, and I don't think you should go here, of the options remaining, I think it's one of these two, and I think you should go here, it makes it so much easier for them to follow your recommendation because you take off the mental burden of them owning the decision in full. Now they share that decision with you, the salesperson, which seems crazy, but it actually helps them make a decision far faster. To the point of making a decision faster, is there anything special that you'll do to get a customer to make a decision sooner rather than later? I have to imagine a CRM purchase is something they could kick the can down the road on for months, if not years.
So what happens a lot with CRM is, a lot of customers can kick this down the road and the conversation just keeps moving forward. Whether they make no decision or they choose an alternate solution, a lot of my customers now that I've been here a few years are ones that I've spoken to a year ago. And that system that they chose, it didn't work out. The spreadsheets, they just can't do it anymore. And so now I take those examples and I use that to my advantage with my current customers and say, look, I know this is a big decision for you, especially if you're on spreadsheets, your current CRM costs are 0. I know there's an investment aspect to this, but if you don't do anything now, if you keep kicking this down the road, we'll have the same conversation a year from now. Your current state of business will be no different. And you've essentially just lost a year of getting kind of the advantage on your competition.
Yeah, one thing that was really helpful for me, both at Carta and at Pave, was to bucket my deals. And so, for example, when I was at Carta, I would bucket my deals into founders before a fundraise, early stage companies that had done at least one fundraise, and then growth stage companies that had done a fundraise and they needed some compliance stuff. And whenever I got a deal that was in that first bucket, founders before a fundraise, those are the types of people that will stick in spreadsheets for years. And it's the same thing for a deal like Pipedrive. If someone's been in a CRM spreadsheet as a one-person team for years, you're going to smell that deal in your pipeline, and it's going to sit there like a stinky rotten egg for the next 17 years if you don't ask them, hey, you've been on spreadsheets for 2 years. Why in the world would you even make the switch now when it seems like things are working well? And so when you find people in that bottom bucket of deals, I would encourage you to scrutinize them 10 times more. And the same thing would happen at Pave, is we had companies before their first compensation review, companies on their first or second compensation review, or companies who had done multiple comp reviews. And the ones in that first bucket, you have to ask those hard questions in the first discovery call, because they'll tell you all of these things that they want to do, when in reality, there's no actual reason or compelling event or real problem they're trying to solve. They're just interested in window shopping and new bells and whistles.
It's a really powerful question when you say to somebody, look, like, I mean, I hear what you're sharing with me, but seems like things are going okay for you all. Like your head is still above water. Like, why even make this change? And when you ask a question like that and push back and say, you don't have to make a decision, then when they respond and justify why they really want to make a change, that gives you the heart of their motivation for the move that they are looking to make, and you can sell to that. So that's a really powerful question. Garrett, the clock is ticking and we are running out of time, so I got to move us to our final question, which is this. We've talked about a lot of really great things salespeople should be doing. Now I got to ask you about a shouldn't. And so the last question is, what is one bad habit that you see a lot of salespeople exhibiting that you think they need to, because it hurts them more than it helps?
Don't command the conversation. It's not your job to talk throughout an entire meeting and just say why your product is the best. You need to make sure that you're listening to the customer, and then whatever you say after that ties directly into whatever they have just said.
Really good. Garrett, thank you for joining us. Everybody stick around for a 60-second recap coming up soon.
Alrighty, Nick, it's time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Garrett Palmer. What do you have for your 2?
Number 1 is, after you set an agenda, the first question that you should be asking your prospect is, why'd you take the call? For inbound deals, it's, hey, what prompted you to reach out, or what prompted you to request a demo? For outbound deals, you have to ask it a little bit differently, where you might say something like, well, gosh, Garrett, I have to imagine there's a lot of folks like me that reach out to you to get time on your calendar. I can't imagine you take meetings with every single one of them. What prompted you to take this one with me? Was there something in my email that caught your eye? Number 2 is, reserve at least 5 minutes at the end of the meeting to talk about logistics and next steps. If you feel like it is worth having a next step with this customer, and it isn't always worth having a next step with every single prospect, but if you feel like it is worth getting a next step on the books, save 5 minutes to talk about those logistics. And one way you might do that is, if there are outstanding topics that you haven't covered in full in the meeting or in the demo, you can cite that and say, hey, I know you were really interested in having a deeper conversation about our integrations. We're not going to be able to do that justice in the 4.5 minutes we have left here. My recommendation would be that we wrap now and schedule some time to go deeper on that topic, maybe for late next week if that works for you.
Number 3. Structure the demo in order of the pain points that are most important to them. So if they said running their merit cycles was the most painful thing, don't start with the permissions page. Start with the merit cycle. And then lastly, number 4, sell them away from the premium package. The easiest way to lose the deal is trying to stuff in all of these nice to have bells and whistles, and then they walk from the deal entirely because they say, oh, this is a little bit more software or a little bit more product than we actually need. Alrighty, Nick, how can people help us out here?
So one of the things that Garrett talks about is driving velocity in these SMB deals that he is working. And we actually put together a toolkit on 5 cheat codes to cut your sales cycle in half. That, I don't know if they're cheat codes. It's not like playing The Sims, Armand, where you would type in the code and you would have $12 million, because my wife builds all these elaborate houses on The Sims with that cheat code, but it will help you accelerate your deals. There is a link in the show notes to get it. We put it together with the awesome team at Pipedrive. It's free. Go use it and you will drive faster timeline on your deals and make more commission. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the show.